Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Charity Village webinar. We will just wait a moment for everyone else to join. Okay, I see that number jumping up, so we will get started. Welcome to today's Charity Village webinar. My name is Mercedes Marup, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Specialist with Charity Village. As we are gathering here in a virtual platform, it is important to acknowledge that each of us is joining this webinar from the ancestral or unceded lands of the Inuit, Métis, and First Nation people. As a settler on this land, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Anishinaabe, which includes the Ojibwe of Fort William First Nation. Before we start today's webinar, I'd like to do a few introductions and quickly run through some housekeeping items. For those of you who may be joining a Charity Village webinar for the first time, Charity Village is Canada's largest online job board for the nonprofit sector. In addition to our online job board, organizations can also post volunteer positions. So if you're looking for work or to recruit talent in the sector, Charity Village is the place to start. We also have a ton of excellent resources for nonprofit professionals, including online courses, articles, fundraising tools, and free webinars like the one we are presenting today. Before I introduce our speakers, I will quickly run through some housekeeping items. You may have noticed when you joined the webinar today that you were automatically put on mute. Since we have hundreds of participants in today's webinar, it is important for us to minimize the amount of background noise so everyone can clearly hear the presentation. But you can still ask questions and make comments using the question box at the bottom of the Zoom control panel, and you can look for that at the bottom of your screen. We will be taking questions at the end of the webinar, so please submit your questions as you think of them, and we will do our best to get to as many as possible. You can also email your questions to webinars@charityvillage.com. If you happen to encounter any technical issues with the webinar, whether with viewing the presentation or with the audio, please let us know in the question box or by sending us an email. We will do our best to get any technical difficulties resolved as quickly as possible, but in a worst case scenario, please remember that we are recording today's webinar and we will send you the full recording by email tomorrow. So if you get called away or disconnected, you will still be able to view the full presentation. And with that, I'd like to welcome our presenters today, Bryna Dilman, the Senior Director of Growth and Marketing at Keela, and Meredith Gray, the Senior Marketing Manager at Keela. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. Today, we're going to talk about recession-proofing your nonprofit. So since you're all here, I'm sure that you already know that a recession is on its way and you're trying to get your ducks in a row. So that is a good sign that you're here. And Bryna and I are really excited to welcome you all and kind of have these really important conversations today. So before we get too far into it, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that the Keela office is located in Vancouver, which is on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Coast Salish people, the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations, and give thanks for their generosity and hospitality on these lands and waters. So thank you again for taking some time out of your busy schedules to join us. And thank you so much to Charity Village for hosting us today.
Okay, welcome. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at all of the attendees. So I'm slower to take the next slide. I am so excited to be here today and to talk to all of you about recession-proofing your organization. Just before all of you joined the group of us here, we're talking about just our personal lives and how groceries are going up. This is not just a nonprofit or a company challenge that we're all facing. This is, every single individual who's having to face all of these different challenges. So what do we want to talk to you about today? Well, introductions. Who are Meredith and myself, and why are we equipped to talk to you today? Hopefully you all agree with us, but we'll give you a bit more background. Also want to talk about why it's important to learn from the past and what we can expect in regards to the future, steps to recession-proof your organization. And then, of course, the most important part, which you all have to hear, are the tools to support you. So really looking forward to communicating all of this. And again, we have our question and answer pop-up open. So please feel free to add in additional questions. We really want to make this as interactive as possible. We know that there are some rules about emailing people post webinars. So if we don't get to your question, please ensure that you write your email address when you write your question so that we can have your approval to communicate with you if we don't get a chance to answer your question on this webinar. All right, Meredith, take it away.
Awesome. So I know that Mercedes briefly introduced us, but you might be wondering why two people from the tech space are here talking about this. Well, while we currently work in the nonprofit tech space at Keela, Bryna and I are also former fundraisers and have actually spent the majority of our careers working in nonprofit organizations of all different shapes and sizes, all in Canada. And specifically, Bryna and I have spent a long time working in fundraising. So I've spent nearly 10 years working in the nonprofit space. I've, kind of dipped my toes in a lot of different areas, but I've spent a long time in diversifying revenue streams, building fundraising pipelines, and I spent a lot of time working in peer-to-peer and sponsorship strategy development.
Thank you, Meredith. So same, I've spent almost 20 years, can't believe it, working in the nonprofit sector in a variety of fundraising and data supporting roles. I worked in the executive team for a variety of national charities and specifically looked at board governance, fundraising strategies, development, and of course, nonprofit research. So thank you all again for attending and choosing to listen to us for the next hour.
So with that being said, as much experience as Bryna and I have had, is there anything that can fully prepare you for a recession? We don't know, but we're here to at least get us started and give you some ideas in terms of what you can do and start doing now to kind of set your organization up for success. So well, like I mentioned, we can't know for sure what we're getting into. We can look at the past and we can try to learn as much as possible from things that have already happened. So during the Great Recession of 2008, total charitable giving dropped by over 7% and continued to decline until 2010. So 7% might not sound like a lot, but when translated into dollars and cents, American nonprofits saw a decline of over $41 billion between 2008 and 2010. So that's pretty significant when you look at that. And then in addition to the revenue loss, 13.5% of American nonprofits actually had to close their doors during or shortly after the Great Recession. So these were organizations that weren't ready, they weren't equipped to enter a recession, they didn't have the necessary precautions in place to continue on, and the demand for their services just became too great, meaning that they could no longer continue operating. So the good news for everybody on this call is that you're already thinking about it. You're already taking some steps. Even if attending today's webinar is the first step, that's all good. But you're already kind of making progress towards doing that preparation to set your organization up for success when it comes to a recession. Oops.
Okay, so what to expect? While a recession will definitely have an impact on a nonprofit's financials, it also will have a huge impact on the for-profit world as well. We were talking about this when everyone was first joining. What does that mean? 2.6 million jobs were lost during the Great Recession. So not only does that impact the amount of money that people have to make charitable donations, but it also led to a huge increase in a demand on the services provided by probably some of your organizations that you're here representing today. And when we are looking more closely at specific organizations in a post-recession world, we have a case study of United Way reporting 68% increase in demand for their services. And that's for food supply, warm clothes, shelter to people in need, with the vast majority of those being linked to job loss and evictions. And so looking at the trends from the Great Recession, we can expect to see overall giving go down, while the need for nonprofit services to increase. Now, again, we're not trying to scare you. You did come here to learn more. And so we really want to make sure that we're here to provide you those those proof points. Now, there is a question in the Q&A talking specifically about paying staff who want raises, and this is very relevant. Keela has a document on our website. You can check it out for compensation salaries, just to give you an idea of what other people are paying. But the challenge and the issue with recessions is that it will correct itself. And so you really need to figure out how your organization can support the people inside your charity now. And maybe that's not a 7% raise, which is the question that's in the Q&A right now, but potentially working with that individual to showcase, what about a 2% chance raise now? Because you want to keep these individuals working, because if your charity is dependent on the circumstances in the general public and what's happening financially, you want to make sure you have the staff to support them. So it's really working out, how do you balance raises and recession? Again, there's a really great documentation on Keela's website, keela.com, if you go and check out our salaries guide, and it gives a lot of back and forth information about what to do to address this specific question. Thanks, Meredith.
Perfect. Yeah, and I see quite a few questions coming in as well about the stats. So just to confirm, those are American stats. We can find similar Canadian stats, so feel free to reach out to us, or we can try and put some resources into the follow-up email, but we can get those stats for you as well. So I think Mercedes is going to queue up a poll for us, but before we get into kind of a few steps to start recession-proofing your nonprofit, we want to hear from you. We want to know how your organization is doing and the trends that you've seen over the past couple of years, which I think we can all agree were probably amongst the most challenging that we have faced in recent years, especially for nonprofits. And we're going to continue to be challenged as we head into 2023. But we want to know which of your revenue streams has been hit the hardest since 2010, or sorry, since 2020. Was it annual giving, major giving, peer-to-peer, corporate giving, or sponsorship? Monthly giving, or maybe you were one of the lucky ones that was able to maintain the same revenue across your different streams. So I'm not sure, can we see the results of the poll, Mercedes?
Yes, we have a 62% participation rate, and they are continuing to roll in. So we'll just give another 20 seconds for people to participate, and then I will show the stats on the screen.
Perfect.
Okay, now we've got about a 70% participation rate, which looks like we have a lot of responses. So we'll end the poll, and you should be able to see the stats on your screen right now.
Okay, so it looks like definitely annual giving and corporate giving and sponsorship were hit very hard over the past couple of years, and there are a few of you who were able to maintain the same revenue as before the pandemic, which is incredible. Corporate giving and sponsorship, that is kind of one of my areas. I am not surprised that is so high, given that the corporate world in general also was very challenged during the pandemic. So thank you. That information is always so interesting for us to see, and it gives us such a great idea of kind of how you're all doing, especially our audience that's on the call.
Excellent. Okay, so now let's get into what you can do to start setting your organization up for success with this recession. All right, we're looking at how can you assess your current state to best determine what you need to do to prepare for the recession. How to communicate with your stakeholders to inspire donations. I remember once a local charity put out something in the newspaper saying, we did not reach the amount of food donations that we were expecting to service our community. We need help. And there was a lot of talk in the nonprofit sector of, uh-oh, did they embarrass themselves? Is this going to cause challenges with the board members that are not necessarily happy that they didn't get the response that they needed? And what happened was, in 2 weeks, we saw a newspaper ad that said, wow, they were overwhelmed with the amount of additional donations because they put out that ask. So be communicating with your stakeholders, especially, and telling them where you are. Are you on track? Are you not? It is okay to ask for additional help, especially during this time. Again, you want to start to plan for various scenarios that could happen to your organization. I know a lot of us here, Meredith and I'm assuming some of you on this call, but please let us know, type in the Q&A. Sometimes you're kind of reacting. You're not necessarily having as much time to be proactive, but we're encouraging you to try your best to be proactive in how you try and set up your organization for a variety of different scenarios. And then again, you want to build strategies to determine what changes you're going to need to make in order to strengthen your financial resources and manage your risk. And of course, what tools are worth exploring, because you really, again, knowing the shortage of resources, what tools can help supplement the actual individuals and resources that you have in your organization. Okay, so let's start with assessing your current state. Okay, again, please type in the Q&A, talk back to me, let me know how this is resonating. But during a crisis, your time and resources are the most important thing. Again, even talking about salaries, you don't want to lose your most important people, and you're deciding, do I pay them? Do I lose them? Am I going to be in a situation where we're not going to be able to support our community? So you need to understand your revenue, your costs, the skills on your team and your stakeholders. Can you promise more vacation? Can you promise raises, or title changes to be able to keep those individuals engaged and stay with your organization until you're able to pay them that 7% or whatever raise you determine as what they're looking for? The ability to be nimble, especially during this time of crisis, is really important, and being able to pivot quickly. Having that deep understanding of the things that you need to do before it gets too tough will help you address them quicker as they start to arise. And really, we want to talk about how much cash do you have on hand to pay your staff and bills in a worst case scenario? Do you have that reserve fund? Do you have financial stocks? Where are you spending? And making a list of things that you could either bundle together. A lot of nonprofit organizations that both Meredith and I worked at, there's very siloed budgets. Can the marketing and fundraising team budgets be combined? Are you using tools that can service multiple departments? There are so many opportunities to really engage more with your teams and break down those silos. You want to also discuss prioritizing the organization's top risks, vulnerabilities, and opportunities, and really engage your board members and seek to ask the important questions and answers like, will the demand of your services increase, as we mentioned regarding United Way? How will a downturn impact staff and morale? Again, don't want to harp on salaries, but you really need to not ignore it and wait until your staff come to you, because sometimes when they come to you, they're at a breaking point. So what are you doing to facilitate these conversations prior to? You also want to understand your team's skill set. Can you utilize your team's resources that can help filter in other areas of your work? This could create better engagement, excitement, and really make those individuals on your team feel like they're making an impact, not just fulfilling the data input or whatever they were hired to do, but giving them more opportunity to see through or see additional resources, responsibilities. And again, it's important to know your stakeholders. Do you have major donors that you can email and say, like, please continue to give? If not, here's what could happen. Do you have people who have given once that you can engage with and say, one more time will really help us out? Do you have a group of people that are volunteers that may be able to do something else? There's so much opportunity to understand who your stakeholders are and how they can help you in this time.
We've got somebody kind of in the Q&A pretty much referencing a bunch of what you just said, Bryna, in terms of what can you offer outside of money. They mentioned flexible work arrangements, 100%
Yes.
benefits. Those are the kinds of things that people are looking for and should not be undervalued. That flexibility, you know, I'm a millennial. Bryna and I work with a ton of millennials, and that is becoming increasingly more important for that group of staff in that age group, that Gen Z millennial group. They want the flexibility, they want remote options, and can really kind of keep your staff engaged and happy outside of, you know, a monetary value. So Bryna just mentioned your stakeholders and the importance of kind of keeping them close, but how do you communicate to them when times are tough? How much sharing is too much or too little? How do you tell them that you need their help while also reassuring them that their donor dollars are being well handled? Well, it starts with being transparent. So be transparent about what you're working on and how you're funding your mission. Your donors, they're not naive. They know as much as we all do what the current state is, and trying to pretend like everything is fine or that your revenue isn't being challenged could actually hurt you in the long run. So it's important to be as open and honest with them as you can, especially around what you're spending money on. These are the people that, you know, have supported you in the past, and they want to see you continue to be successful in the future. So if you're changing your funding priorities, tell them. If you're having to pause part of your mission altogether to make it through, be honest about it. You know, Bryna and I, we come from a fundraising background, like we mentioned, and early in the pandemic, I was working at an organization it's an oncology camp for kids with cancer. It's an amazing organization, but we relied really heavily on peer-to-peer and community event revenue. And then when the pandemic hit, obviously all of that revenue was in danger. But in addition to that, we actually weren't even allowed to bring kids up to camp. So not only was our fundraising challenged, but our entire mission was paused. So, you know, understanding we were in a time of crisis, we completely shifted our case for support to what we could do. We couldn't bring kids to camp. That wasn't a secret. I think at that point in time, you couldn't even be in the same room as another person. But what we could do was focus on the things that we had been putting off, which in our case was accessibility and renovations and things like that we could do, so that when we were able to open, we could welcome even more kids back to camp. So we saw a ton of success with this kind of shift, because the first thing that we did was communicate it to our stakeholders. You know, we clearly outlined that we were having to shift our focus, but we still needed their support. And the secret here was transparency. Our stakeholders knew how we were investing their money. We were being transparent about the parts of our mission that we were temporarily changing, while still touching on kind of our long-term goal, which was aligned with our original mission, which is what they wanted to support from the start. So I know it's way easier said than done. That is, you know, one example of a ton of ways that you could kind of make that shift, but that transparency piece is really important, and it keeps your supporters close to your mission. And keeping them close, you know, reassures them that you are still hard at work, that you still need their support to continue the great work you're doing, even if it looks a little bit different for the time being. And then finally, tell them what you need. Don't be shy. Donors like to feel like they are saving the day, and being open and honest about the challenging times that you're facing and why you need them now more than ever can encourage an even greater level of support. A recession is going to impact everybody, including your donors. So you may get more no's than you're used to, but continuing to make those asks in just a different way is still really important.
Okay, and plan for the unexpected. And I'm looking at the Q&A, and you know, I see that some people are saying that their staff already have flexible work and they already alternating Fridays off and 4 weeks vacation. What else can you do? Plan for the unexpected. Well, what happens if they leave? Is that more financially a challenge for your organization or not? Is there opportunity? Again, on the slide before, when we talked about looking at how much reserves do you have? Do you have the opportunity to go into your reserves to pay this 1 or 2 employees that are detrimental to the success of your organization? These are things you have to look at and have to ask yourself in order to really understand, can I survive if this individual leaves? And maybe you can. Maybe there's an opportunity to communicate to your employees, in order for us to give you this raise or continue to do this, we need to see an increase of donations. What are you going to do to support that revenue line? So again, expect the worst, plan for the best, understand your challenges, know when and how to implement your worst case scenarios, diving into your reserves in order to pay this. I see another individual, Yvonne, wrote that there was a lot of government support during COVID. And as soon as the government support ran out, all of these nonprofits are now expected to just go right back to where they were before COVID had come. Well, what do? Again, understand the impact, assign and track, list all the factors that your organization needs to do, nice to have, all of the things that are going to really, really, really give you the scenarios of the worst case to good case to best case. And hopefully this will help them, because this really is help you. Hopefully this is an opportunity for you to really understand, not just, oh, I can't afford them, let them go, but what happens if they go? Or what happens if we don't communicate to our stakeholders? And again, Rhonda wrote, how do you communicate with your stakeholders? Ask them. This is a really good opportunity to create better interactions with your supporters, your stakeholders. I've been calling you for the last 2 years. Do you prefer text? Do you prefer email? Do you prefer an in-person visit? We sit outside on the porch. How do you want to be communicated to? There's nothing wrong with asking. Asking actually makes them feel heard, understood, and builds better relationships. So again, thank you so much for everybody writing in this channel. Please continue, as it is very timely for these slides.
So once you have kind of a clear sense of where you stand, your plans for various scenarios, it's really important to consider the strategies that are within your control for mitigating risks and improving your short-term financial strength. There's going to be a million things that are outside of your control as we go into this. So understanding what you can control is such a great first step. So it's going to look different for everybody. But a few things that you could consider to strengthen your financials are, one, if you're worried about being short on cash, look into some of your contracts and see if you can negotiate payment dates, if you can establish a line of credit to support your expenses. You should be really careful to read through everything, especially contracts that you've had for years, contracts that you're considering bringing on as new vendors, things like that. And make sure that there are no auto renewals set up, or if there are, that you know about them, because that could end up costing you more. Next, if your cash is declining, consider shortening the time frame of your cash flow projections. You're likely looking at it in a 12-month chunk. If you shorten that to 2 to 3 months, it can help you better understand the realistic inflows and outflows of your cash on a shorter term basis. Next, if you're running deficits, look for the root cause and try and adjust some of your budgeting practices. I know this is way easier said than done, but looking at things like, could you reforecast the budget more frequently, or are you reflecting uncertainties with your cash flow within your budgeting practices? Looking into these things could help you find opportunities to strengthen your financials, especially in the shorter term. If your reserves are low, are there opportunities to build them up? A good way could be to look at your upcoming projects and see if any of them are more nice to haves rather than need to haves. And would deferring some of those things for a short time have a significant impact on your short or long-term organizational goals? If the answer is no, that could be a really good cost-saving measure and allow you to put more money into your reserves. And finally, make sure that you have systems in place that will give you real-time information and will guide your financial decisions. So, from your finance team to your fundraising teams, it's really important, especially going into a recession, that you can track your financials as close to real time as possible so that you don't end up getting, some report 3 months later that actually enlightens you to a situation that was maybe worse than you had initially anticipated. So that real time is really important so that you can make quick decisions kind of based on what your current state actually is.
And what else can you do? Stay vigilant. Now I'm looking at some of the Q&A, and David said something that's so timely right now, is that in uncertain times, people need to maybe not necessarily communicate to the stakeholders that you're optimizing resources, but potentially look at a shared burden. There's been so many unfortunate layoffs that we've seen over the last couple of weeks. And there's a lot of chatter in the community about, well, what if the management can reduce funds for a period of a certain time? What if instead of bonuses, we put that on hold? What if an opportunity to look at pay holds or salary, again, holds for a time being, again, ensuring that you're continuing to stay on top of trends, that you're being nimble, that you're proactively, continuously communicating, and not just to your stakeholders, to your donors, to your volunteers, to your community, but to your internal staff. What does this look like? We don't want you to leave. We want to pay you what you deserve. We don't have the funds. How can we work together to make this work? And again, looking at tools. There are so many affordable tools out there for the nonprofit organizations, specifically Keela, and I am being very serious, that really understand what it means to support organizations that don't have all of this resource to just throw at tools and forget their resources. There are so many resources and tools that you can utilize, implement, optimize to be able to support your most precious resources, those staff that really deserve those raises, and give them the easy tools to help them identify more ways to raise revenue.
Okay, so Bryna and I have been talking for a little while, so we want to hear from you all again. So how are you going to prepare? So based on today's conversation, which step do you kind of see as the most valuable when you're preparing for an incoming recession? Is it assessing your current state? Is it understanding how to communicate your needs to your stakeholders, developing plans for various scenarios, or strengthening your financials?
We have a 40% participation rate, so we'll just wait until we jump up a little bit higher as we see the attendees participating.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so thank you all again for these incredible questions and really engaging with us in the chat. We'd love to see this feedback. We want to make sure that you know that we are really here to help support you. So yes, please continue to write in some questions, comments, whatever you need in our chat.
So we have the results here. It looks like developing plans and various scenarios is what people are going to do. That is great. That is, in my personal opinion, the most important, because it allows you to, again, control what you can control, right? And having those plans set up means that you're able to make quick action, which is going to be a theme in a recession. So we will move to this.
Okay, so again, we mentioned, what can you do? A huge opportunity. We are now seeing across the board in newspapers, on LinkedIn, on social media, on any kind of webinar I've attended, technology. Technology is now being developed, or has been developed, but now it's being more heard by the nonprofit sector to really help the nonprofit sector do the heavy lifting. The nonprofit sector hires individuals to be able to communicate to stakeholders, to donors, and be able to raise funds and communicate that one-to-one personal communication so that you can actually talk about why you need these funds. Where do you use technology? We mentioned this before, but it's really important to research and look for tools that can set you up for success. You want to really look at having online giving options, especially after all of the past couple of years. We were even talking about it before this group joined, is that working virtual, being virtual, participating virtual is not going away. So ensure that you have engaging online tools, engaging online donation forms, ways in which those online donation forms can actually encourage individuals to donate more and give back data to your nonprofit staff of what to do with this data after somebody gives. Again, Keela has really incredible smart tools and smart asks. It's really important that you look into this because it's important that these tools help. You want to understand and look at programs that can automate as much as your admin work as possible. There are tons of options to automate your stewardship communications, donor outreach, and reporting. And by automating as many of those functions as possible, your staff will have more time to do the things that a computer can't do, which is build those relationships with your donors and showcase their value. We talked a lot about layoffs. There's some people in the chat saying they're going to have to lay off more people. Well, what if you took away all of the admin things that are taking so much time for these employees to do, and you give them the time back to be able to develop these relationships so that they can raise the revenue? You will then have justification to keep them. So you really want to research tech options to increase your revenue. And nonprofit software has come a long way in terms of using tech to really give valuable insights into your donors, making smart asks so that you're not leaving money on the table. Again, Keela has all of these different platforms. It's not just a CRM. There's a ton of automation tools that are built for small to medium sized nonprofits who want to grow and want to be able to utilize technology where they're at in the stage of their fundraising dollars. So really, please take the time to look into that.
Yeah. And I think somebody asked, for an example, when you were talking about automation, that's kind of when that came through.
Yes.
So I'm going to assume that those are aligned. Obviously Bryna and I are partial to Keela, but automation is a feature of Keela's, and being able to do things like automate every email that you send, being able to create tasks for yourself and reminders, all these kinds of things to basically like really streamline efficiencies and automate work so that you can be doing those things like Bryna mentioned, like making those connections. Regardless of everyone's opinions on this specific platform, ChatGPT is something that has recently come out. We actually just wrote a blog about how nonprofits can use it, so feel free to check that out. But that's a really great example of a tool that exists to start creating those efficiencies. Obviously, anything that you're putting in or taking out of there will need to be heavily edited and changed and personalized and all of those kinds of things. But that's kind of the way that things are going in order to save time and resources. AI is not necessarily there to replace people, it's there to help people, and it's there to really kind of free up that time so that you can invest it in the things that a computer can't do. And that is going to be such a huge theme and a huge indicator of success, especially beyond 2023. I think we're starting to see more and more of it now, but it's only going to continue to grow in terms of its influence over every sector. So, that's kind of it for Bryna and I. We've taken you through it all. I have our contact information up on the screen there. We are always happy to chat if it's about fundraising, if it's about what to do during the challenging times, if you have questions about Keela, if you have questions about tech options, anything like that. Bryna and I are always very keen and very excited to hear from you. We're fundraising nerds just like everybody else, so we love to, even if you want to talk about fundraising or talk about strategies, anything like that, we are always happy to hear from you. So don't ever hesitate to reach out to us.
Yes, we are absolutely in the same boat as you. Really, still, I'm supporting nonprofits. We're still working with a ton of nonprofits, and it's really important to have the tools necessary in order to get through this recession that we see coming and is for most part really already here.
Yeah, for sure. I'm seeing Linda in the chat saying that one of the savings that they found was that they were renting a storage unit that they didn't need. They purged all of the materials they no longer needed, saving over $2,000 a year. Like, these are the kinds of cost saving things. And, if you are, this is a big one, but we've seen a lot of nonprofits, or at least, people within my network, talking about downsizing their offices because with hybrid work, they just don't need the same amount of space that they needed before. There's a lot of different areas that you could poke into, and definitely as you're building up those plans, those kind of hopefully back burner plans that you're going to be happier there, but you hope you don't necessarily have to use, that can really influence those plans.
And I see a question, are we really heading into a recession? Not everyone is in agreement on this question. Really good question and really good post. Does it really matter whether or not everybody feels it? We see it in our grocery bills. We see it in a lot of our heating bills. I'll tell you that for sure. There are so many things that are definitely increasing. And with regards to some of the Q&A here, a lot of individuals and organizations are not able to increase their staffing funds and are not necessarily getting the same granting from government, nor are they raising the same amount of revenue. So whether you call it a recession or not, there are definitely pulls that are happening right now in our spaces that are saying things are more costly, and are we raising the same amount of revenue? So whether or not you call it a recession or you don't, it's a really good point. But again, based on this entire presentation, it's still a good opportunity to go through all of these different points and find ways to utilize your tools and your technology, because maybe at a time it will be very clear, regardless of who's talking about it, that we're in a similar position, that we really need to look deeper and find ways to support our internal staff and find ways to utilize the technology at our fingertips to be able to support the communities in which all of you are doing.
And I see another question here from Fallon asking about, we can control our fundraising budget, but we cannot control the budgets of the entire organization. The recession is going to impact everybody, whether it's your program staff, your administrative staff, your fundraising staff, your HR staff, like it's going to impact everybody. This is the time where your department heads need to be coming together to work collectively on a budget. I know traditionally, or maybe not traditionally, but many nonprofits work in silos. Bryna and I have seen it. It just is a thing that happens, and that's okay. But with something coming as big as a recession, or, the increases in inflation, all of these things that are coming, this is the time where you really need to be working together on things like these budgets and these plans. So again, focusing on what you can control, and while you might not be able to directly control other people's budgets, you can talk to the people who do.
Exactly. And I see more questions coming in. This is amazing. I love this. Okay, Meredith, which one?
Let's see here. Charities have already had to implement some of these measures, i.e. reducing office space, eliminating storage, during the pandemic, and have been left quite vulnerable to a possible recession. What fundraising or donor communications and engagement strategy work have you seen being effective during a recession?
Keela.com, go to our resources. We've got a ton. I think there's like a 5 or 10 page document that walks you through all of these different strategies that can help you. So again, Keela.com, and check out our tools, and it will really help you figure out what those strategies are.
Yes, for sure. We actually have like email templates as well for asking for donations during a recession. So again, something that can be personalized and used, but definitely a resource available again on our website. There's tons of great stuff there. I see somebody asking about the salaries guide as well. Sorry, Bryna. Yes, that is also in the same place, our 2023 fundraising salaries guide, which is actually a very useful tool if you're looking at potential layoffs or salary adjustments and those kinds of things, so that you can see how your salaries compare to industry standards.
There is no cost to our resources. These are free documents. So please visit Keela.com and download as many free resources at your leisure. So in light of high-tech solutions and ideas, where does more direct interpersonal contact and communications fall in the fundraising spectrum? Again, I think it is really important to do both. You need to have the ability to have the technology that has the ability to ask your donors and your supporters how they like to be communicated, and in asking them and how they donate and how they communicate and where they find you, you need to follow up in regards to how they want to be communicated. So there's a lot of preconceived notions that, some individuals don't want to be communicated via email or call. They want to be seen in person. Well, have you asked them, and have you asked them more than once? People change their minds. People have different preferences. People are still uncomfortable potentially in loud and crowded places. So continuously use technology to find out how best your donors and supporters want to be talking to you and how they've talked to you. So it's really important to use your technology at your fingertips so that you know when and how to talk to them. And again, if somebody asks me a question and continues to ask me a question, you know what I think? I think they care about me. It's just as when you're, with friends or family, and they're actually asking you questions, you really believe that they care about you, they're interested in you, they're learning about you. You need to do the same as a nonprofit organization and find out as much as you can about your donors. Don't be scared to use your technology, to talk to them, to ask them, to continuously have that relationship, because that is what's going to build a strong connection. And there is data points and proof that these strong connections actually create increased revenue.
Hmm. And then I see somebody has a question here about funders and, putting in applications to funders only for them to ask who is already funding you, and you're just trying to get your first funder. I'm certainly not an expert in grants or that kind of fundraising. However, we did recently do a webinar actually all about it. So we did a Grant Maker Ask Me Anything with 2 funders who answered, I believe, this exact question and a ton of other questions around getting your first grant applications, all kinds of those things. So those are also on the Keela website in the webinar section. So feel free to go and check that out as well. It's, again, a free resource all about grant funding.
Okay, a couple more before we have to say goodbye. Unfortunately, we could do this all day long.
I know. Okay, let's see. So how specific should we be when sending reports to stakeholders in regards to describing where our money is going? The majority of our budget goes towards salary, with very little going towards expenses. But in my experience, many donors want to fund a program, not a salary. How do you recommend I share our budget and expenses?
Oh, wow. I love this question. I know it's an anonymous individual. I wish I could say your name and thank you, but this is such a good question. And there are so many ways in which you have to pay somebody in order for something to happen. We can't expect doctors and we can't expect all these individuals making these changes in the world to do anything for free. Why would we expect that the nonprofit staff have to do things for free? You should not be afraid to communicate how and where and why you're paying your staff. Your staff are the lifeblood of your organization. And to be really honest, the more you can showcase that these staff, along with the tech to help them together, actually is what is going to solve the challenge or the service that you're providing, it is essential. It is absolutely essential. And those individuals that don't believe people should be paid, or that are uncomfortable with people being paid to be able to support a cause, it's going to get more and more challenging to really showcase that that just doesn't work anymore. You have to pay individuals. We all live in a community where we buy groceries. We have to pay for a roof over our heads, having our families of our own. And we want to make sure that we're getting the brightest minds working for our own charities. You can't ask for all these smart individuals graduating from these universities to come to your organization and pay them no money when they've just spent all this money on their education. So there really is a balance. So I encourage you to communicate and showcase how and why these individuals are actually raising revenue for your organization. And again, go to Keela.com and look at a ton of our resources that talk about how to communicate to stakeholders, how and what to say, where and why these salaries are important, and how this all ends up supporting your mission. We have time for like 1 or 2 more questions.
Yeah, let's go to this one here. So I know that many organizations, especially smaller ones, have tried numerous strategies over the last 2 years, but ultimately it comes down to being chronically underfunded. You can't get blood from a stone type of thing. The Great Resignation is still in progress and demand is still high. Everyone is trying to do more with less. How do we express to funders the direness of the situation that many organizations are in?
Transparency.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
you know, I once worked for an organization where they used to give us snacks and this and that, and then all of a sudden they laid off a whole bunch of people the next day. Well, there was no transparency. What if they told us that they were in a situation where they weren't able to afford that, and instead of laying people off, given us the opportunity to find ways to cut things? Again, not just internal staff, not just donors, not just volunteers, not just board members. Everybody wants transparency. And again, as I mentioned previously in the beginning of the call, when an organization put out in the newspaper that they did not make the amount of donations or food donations that they were expecting in order to service their community, there was a lot of talk in the nonprofit community that, that's a faux pas, they shouldn't have done that. But in the end, it actually garnered so much more support and they gained so much more donations. People need to know where and how they can contribute. Every single individual donor, supporter, especially if they're committed to your nonprofit, care about the success of your organization. So it's really important to be as transparent as possible. I don't know, Meredith, if you have anything else to add.
I mean, I was just going to add, because you referenced funders specifically, I mean, I know I keep harping on this webinar, but the grant Ask Me Anything webinar that we did was really, really great. And I believe it addressed kind of the application process and how you can stand out from some others, and especially some things that funders are looking for in an application that would make you stand out. So I would really recommend checking that out as well, especially if you're looking at grants and that kind of stuff specifically. Okay, I think we have time for one more, and then we'll wrap it up and hand it back to Mercedes. But our society is member-based and reliant on volunteers. We have one part-time employee. How do we retain members and keep our volunteers engaged? I mean, not to sound like a broken record, but that same transparency that you are giving to your board and your donors, you should be giving to your volunteers. Volunteers are, they're crucial to an organization. It's so important. We're actually going to be doing a webinar coming up in March as well, all about volunteerism and volunteer engagement with Imagine Canada and Volunteer Canada. So I would recommend checking that out as well. But be transparent with them too. It is also a time where volunteers are looking to give. You may actually see an increase in your volunteers, understanding that some people where their financial support may not be as effective as it might have been, they're looking for opportunities to further engage and support you in a different way. So I would say, create an engagement plan for your volunteers that involves emails, it involves phone calls, it involves mission updates, all of those important things, and be as transparent with them as you can.
And one more thing to add, Jennifer, to answer your question, ask them, how do you want to be engaged? Why do you like to support our organization? What made you choose us versus another one? Ask people questions. Again, it goes back to really understanding that. And again, having a database like Keela CRM to be able to track these answers so that you understand, what are these people here doing? Why are they here? What made them choose you? And to continue to utilize that information when communicating back to them.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we'll hand it back to Mercedes.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Bryna and Meredith, for such a great presentation. Do either of you have any final comments before we sign off today?
You go first, Bryna.
Yeah. I think really, not that we want to always be in a state of panic, but, a recession is a really good time and opportunity to look inward and decide what and how you can do things better. I mean, we can always do it regardless if we're in a recession or not. And the more you have the plans and communications and the actual ways in which you're talking to all your different stakeholders, I think you're really equipped to be able to get through the hard times and ensuring that you have what you need to support that. And that's pairing that with the right technology to support your organization.
Yeah, I mean, just to add on to that, I mean, I feel like I've said the word unprecedented more in the last 3 years than I have in my entire life. And unfortunately, we're continuing to go into unprecedented times, and leaning on each other and learning from each other is going to be huge going into a recession. We don't know fully what to expect. Bryna and I just kind of looked to the past as much as we could to come up with what we presented to you today. And it's a great jumping off point, but talk to each other. figure out how, what are you seeing success with? What are you not seeing success with? What is online that could help? Where can you look for, cost saving measures? Talk to each other, share information with each other. That's how we're going to get through it, is together. And I think there is so much knowledge sharing and so much learning that can be done between nonprofits, between tech and nonprofits, between tech to tech. There's all kinds of, this sector is so huge and there's so much expertise in it that we should be learning from each other and looking for those opportunities to learn from each other.
Yes, thank you for those insights. And I would like to remind everyone that you will receive a follow-up email tomorrow with a link to the webinar recording. And please feel free to share this link with your colleagues. The email will also include a survey link, which you can fill out with your feedback on today's webinar. On behalf of Charity Village, thank you so much for joining us today. And I wish you all a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Charity Village.